Hey everyone, welcome back to a season in review of Untitled Draft League Season 3. I'm Ben, JPEG, Friendly Fellows, coach of the Cali Camera Ups, and hopefully the audio is going to be a lot better in this video than the last one. If you haven't seen the last one, please go check it out. I cover the 12th through 7th seeds of our main season, and in this video we're going to go over the 6th through number 1 seed. Starting with 6th seed Erie Espers, coached by Glenn as a Frog, a.k.a. Mr. Daniel. Right. Where's his squad? All right, squad right here. First thing that jumps out at you is probably the Colossal. Colossal is one of the highest potential mons in Series 9. It does so much damage, great stabs, pretty solid coverage. Like having grass stabbed hit the waters and ground types that are hitting you is really nice. One of the best abilities, Steam Engine, makes you go super fast, but its base speed also lets it function well as a Trick Room mon, which if you look at Glenn's first pick is Dusclops, one of the best Trick Room setters in the game. So insanely bulky, pretty much impossible to OHKO. And then moving on, Tapu Bulu, pretty underrated Pokemon. I've been using it in Series 10, but in terms of Series 9, I didn't really see it a lot until I played Glenn Week 3, and he used a weakness policy Tapu Bulu set and totally swept me. It was rough. But yeah, Tapu Bulu, really fantastic mon. Can run mix, can run physical, can run special. Having terrain is awesome. Pretty good typing. And being 4 times weak to poison isn't great, but in terms of other weaknesses, nothing too terrible. Good covers as well. Next is Inteleon. The worst of the 3 Galar starters, but definitely not a bad mon at all. Having Surf and Aqua Jet to proc Colossal, like Surf in the face of redirection, and then Aqua Jet in psychic terrain, or in case of a fake or something to block priority. I mean, Aqua Jet in the case of needing some speed, in case there's something that's going to KO Colossal, like a Scarf or something. But yeah, also pretty strong offensively. Doesn't get the best coverage, but hits really hard on the special side. Critting, sniper crits are so scary. Mudsdale, another part of the kind of Trick Room core. Really solid, pretty solid ground type, especially for how much it costs. Stamina, if a team is physically biased and Mudsdale manages to get a couple of stamina boosts, it becomes unbreakable. It's really nice and pretty decent attack stat, pretty decent coverage. Reuniclus, another Trick Room mon. If Dusclops just doesn't work out and you want to run that Reuniclus, it's great. It's super offensive. Regenerator is super bulky. Reuniclus is pretty fantastic. Vikavolt. Vikavolt's pretty scary. Being an electric type with Levitate is always fantastic, but pretty good stab. Electric is a fantastic stab. Bug can be really nice in some niches, but having access to energy ball is really good. And definitely, if you give it an iron ball, it's super scary. Even though it doesn't stop you from levitating, it can boost your energy balls on grassy terrain set by Bulu. Yeah, pretty fantastic. Pretty good special attacker. Vanillix. So this kind of Vanillix Beartic added the hail mode. Yeah. Just solid hail mode. Vanillix Ice Shard can get policy on the Tapu Bulu, on the Mudsdale. Sets hail for Slush Rush Beartic. Sets Aurora Veil, can explode even if you wanted to lead Dusclops Vanilla and just explode. You can do that. Altaria, decent counter to some weather strats, also can be procced with policy by Vanillix. Pretty solid Pokemon. Gets Paris Trap, gets KO'd pretty easily, but can Paris Song and do a couple of fancy things. Tailwind, Breaking Swipe, good moves. Squirtle, this is G-Max is the funny joke, G-Max Squirtle, but for a 1-point mon, this thing is ridiculous. It's so bulky. even without Eviolite, it lives some insane hits. Aqua Jet and Surf for proccing Colossal, fantastic. Fake Out, some more niche moves like Haze. It's fantastic if you don't have room to run Haze on Dusclops. You can run Haze on the Squirtle. It's really good. When you look at this team at first, you don't see any really common VGC threats, but then you start thinking about it. The synergy here, it's in terms of synergy, it's one of the best synergistic teams in the league. Every Mon just goes so well together. Glenn can bring whatever mode he wants and dominate. It's so hard to predict what this team wants to do, and Glenn definitely played to that. I know picking off a lot of things with the surprise pact of weakness policy, having 3 pretty decent weakness policy, being able to run 2 different fast modes, and also having an incredible trick room mode. Really, Glenn played great this season. Yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about that team. All right, let's go over the Shkoyakil, somewhere, and I think it was Pennsylvania. City in Pennsylvania, Scolipeds. Coached by none other than league founder, Applejacks. This team is really, really, really solid. My dogs want to be heard. Really, really solid. I didn't play this orientation of the team, so I'm not as familiar with it, but I still do really like it. I think having, if you look at the strong Trick Room core in Trevenant, Rhyperior, Crawdaunt, even Togepi to an extent, really fantastic. I love when there's Trick Room cores that use less used sweepers like Rhyperior and Crawdaunt. Momo, I'm recording. Easy, buddy. Okay. But first pick Liepard, that was insane to see in draft, but I totally agree with I totally get the pick. Liepard is such a fantastic Prankstermon, Taunt, Fake Out, both Sunny Day and Rain Dance, Helping Hand, Foul Play. I think it might even get Snarl, I'm not sure. But just so many fantastic moves, and being immune to other Prankster taunts is great. And just what a fantastic Mon. And for 11 points, it's really solid. Then Entei. Entei's so bulky. If you want to run a physical variant, you're immune to Intimidate. You're immune to Fake Out, so you don't need to be using Max as a defensive tool to avoid the Fake Out, which is really nice. So much damage, runs physical, runs special. Entei's really solid. Also gets good coverage. Togepi, great redirector. Follow Me, it's significantly better than Rage Powder. But yeah, it gets good support moves. Always the mind games with redirection are super great to have. Passimian is a pretty decent mid-tier fighting type. Having a fighting type is really helpful, especially because your 2 or 3 of your strongest Mon. Sorry. Passimian is great because it covers your 2 big weaknesses in your high point Latios. And Latios is obviously weak to Dark and Ice, and Passimian fighting dunks on both those types. Mime G, really fast, fantastic coverage, good support moves, Icy and Fake Out, the usual. Boltund can do some competitive, can ward off Intimidate with competitive, but also get some really funny, having fast Electrify is kind of funny, especially with, Lightning Rod Rhyperior. I don't think that's ever really viable, but it's still definitely funny and has options. And Boltund is really fast and has good Electric Stab, some decent coverage, Strong Jaw's a decent ability. But it's fast, and that's really nice to have. Crawdaunt, again, fantastic Trick Room Steeper. Adaptability is nuts, especially if you max guys or get this thing in the rain. It's so good. Adaptability Aqua Jet just OHKOs some stuff if it's not bulky. Latios, great, fantastic typing, good coverage, good speed, good attack stats. It's Latios, and you can get a weakness policy off it with Ice Shard Mime G. And lastly, Pheromosa, kind of a Mon that can run all out attacking, can run setup, can run support. Really fantastic. Great speed, great offenses on both sides. it's so unpredictable, and just like if you don't prepare for the right Pheromosa set, you're kind of screwed. Apple definitely played really well this season. Like some really, really creative team building on this part. Like none of these like Mons, besides like maybe Entei, were like super like everyone's like, oh, you snipe me. But like the way he's made it kind of thrown together. Like maybe on the Liepard, a lot of people like Liepard, but besides Liepard and Entei, it's a lot of kind of off threats, but they come together really nicely and can do big damage. And obviously Apple's like been a fantastic player. Season 1 finalist, like last season's number 1 seed, really an incredible player, and they can make pretty much any team work. Like I'm not surprised that like they decided to opt for like a team that like can be really diverse and has a lot of options. All right, great. I'll move on to the next team. The number 4, the Boston Selbies, Stotzi, right over here. This, I feel comfortable saying this team is the best core 6 in the league. This, like, probably, like, maybe you could find another core 6 somewhere. I doubt it, though. The core of Moltres, Galarian Moltres, Raichu, Urshifu Rapid Strike, Politoed, Registeel, and Cinderace, G-Max, Libero, Cinderace. So insane. Like, you may be looking at Politoed and then seeing, oh, there's no Swift Swimmer. You don't need a Swift Swimmer. You can get the Airstream boosts off both Moltres and Cinderace. Boosting Surging Strikes makes Urshifu so... It does stupid amounts of damage in the rain. And then obviously, like, oh, you look at these you look at 3 of these 4, weak to electric. Yeah, if you're fantastic lightning on Raichu, can spread a lot paralysis with Nuzzle. Nuzzle's a fantastic move. It's like it's so much better than Thunder Wave. You get Fake Out as well. Lightning Rod, Volt Switch, a bunch of fun stuff. Charm, Encore, really like Raichu's a fantastic support mon and really scary. Registeel, if you let Registeel get too many iron defenses off, you're screwed. Like, Body Press will do insane damage. It's so hard to break, especially, like, if you're trying to hit it with a Fire-type move. Having Rain to, like, deny that and having... And, yeah, that's pretty solid. And then Cinderace is obviously Cinderace. So good, especially in Draft, where there's, like, lower power levels across the teams. You gotta prep really hard for Cinderace in order to not auto-lose to Cinderace. Just having stab on whatever move you click and having great coverage is so fantastic. Incredible speed stat, great attack stat. But then you kind of like look at some of the other threats. Like your next best thing is Ditto, and Ditto can, like, especially against like teams that have predictable setup, like maybe like a beat up Justify team. Ditto's pretty, like, can copy those boosts. That's pretty interesting. But, like, what else is there? Like, Meowstic Female, like, gets competitive, I guess. And then Lilligant is kind of like a niche. Maybe if someone's running, like, a Sunny Day counter, like, to Prankster, like, a Prankster Sunny Day set to counter the Politoed in the rain, Lilligant's, like, just gonna punish that. But that's really niche, and I don't really know how viable that is. But these, like, are so irrelevant when your core 6 is so strong. It makes the team a little bit predictable, and like that's how I was able to pick up my win against Stotzi. I was like, okay, I can pretty much predict and like kind of plan around what I know is coming. So, but like if you get even one thing wrong, this team just destroys you, and it even has like the ability to be creative, like a bunch of different options for weakness policy. Like, even within the core 6, the sets vary. Like, the sets are pretty varied. And, like, Stassi played great. Like, 4th seed finish is fantastic. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of all I had to say about that team. Move on to number 3, Prime's Skybound Thunderous. And boom, boom, boom. I think they were for, yeah. Double Genies. So busted. If you want to run Physical Landorus, you can do Disc Quake. Is such an insane combo. Just so much great spread damage, but you can also run Special Landorus. The fact that this thing was 13 points is insane. But Thundurus on its own is incredible, and so is Landorus. They don't need to be next to each other. Thundurus, 2 great abilities in Prankster and Defiant, can really like run either depending on the matchup. Those two together just do so much damage. And then, like, sure, they have the shared Ice-type weakness, but you got Bronzong who resists that. You got Darmanitan who punishes Ice types hard. Bronzong, fantastic slow support mon for Trick Room. Prime's team doesn't love Trick Room. It's pretty fast for the most part, but Araquanid really likes Trick Room. And Araquanid is... I lost to Prime, and Araquanid was a big part of that. Like, it's so fun. It's really solid. It does so much damage in Trick Room, and it's really hard to hit it hard how you want it. Like, especially like with good support. Bronzong is, again, going back to Bronzong. Bronzong's fantastic. Darmanitan hits super hard, pretty fast, good coverage. Hitmontop, good intimidate, fake out, coaching, like all the typical stuff. Wide guard, quick guard. Really, Hitmontop can be fantastic. Mach Punch for, no one really here uses Mach Punch for weakness policy, but a Bullet Punch for Gardevoir can definitely, and going into Gardevoir, great special attacker. Maybe it can be part of a Trick Room core, not really. Prime's team, like, doesn't need Trick Room either. Like, it has great, pretty solid speed control for the most part. But yeah, Gardevoir, great special attacker. Great special attacker. Just good coverage, good typing, good stabs. Some nice support moves. Umbreon is really bulky, only like, and its fighting type weakness is walled by Gardevoir, and its fairy type weakness is walled by Bronzong, and bug weaknesses are also walled by Bronzong, but less effective, less exploited than fighting and fairy weaknesses often are. Umbreon, great Snarl, Foul Play, great support mon, eats up hits, just eats them up. And even if you want to run Wish to like heal off, like this thing can be unkillable. Lopunny, Klutz Trick, like for a crippling item like a Lagging Tail or a Flame Orb. Fake Out, like decent support mon. I don't really know what Unfezant and Ghastly do, but they're here too. Prime's team is so scary. Like, as you get down, like, some of the lesser threats maybe, like, aren't as scary, but those top, like, Double Genies, like, can dominate a team that doesn't, like, prepare the right way for it. Bronzong is fantastic. Araquanid is so underrated. Like, it does so much damage with the Water Stab. Hitmontop is really fantastic, and I think Umbreon is pretty great. So yeah, Prime's team was really, really solid, and they finished They finished out the season really strong. Alrighty. Now, foiled felines, River City Riolus, our number two seed, obviously defending champ. For those who aren't aware, foiled. The Season 2 champion. This team is... I'm a big fan of this team. On paper, when I looked at it first, I was like, what? I wasn't really like... I was definitely confused because 2 of your highest point mons are fire types. You have the Incineroar at the top and the Chandelure at the bottom. But those mons on their own are fantastic. Incineroar is one of the most polarizing mons, like Fake Out, and like the best Intimidator, one of the best Fake Outers. Parting Shot is great, and you can run physically offensive variants if you want. It gets Bulk Up, it gets Earthquake, Thunder Punch, like good fighting covers as well. Obviously, like it has 2 phenomenal stabs. And its speed you can be used as Trick Room Sweeper alongside Mimikyu. Now, Mimikyu is the most consistent Trick Room setter. Like, basically, your only real call from Mimikyu is, do I need to run physically defensive or specially defensive, and do I want Mental Herb or a Resist Berry? Because if you make the right decisions, like, I used Mimikyu last season to great success. Like, if an opposing team's only real way of denying Trick Room on Mimikyu is Taunt, a Mental Herb. You throw a Mental Herb on the Mimikyu, and it's so good. It's so consistent. Will-O-Wisp is great. Shadow Sneak is pretty solid for proccing policy. Play Rough, great. Swords Dance, you can run Swords Dance, Woodhammer, Shadow Claw is fantastic. And sword, like, off in an offensive, like, variant. So it's not only, like, restricted to being that Trick Room setter. Lucario can run some interesting sets. Obviously, it can run both special and physical. If you're running the beat-up version, you're probably going to want to run physical. I think Meowstic gets beat up, and Meowstic, another pretty solid Prankstermon. Gets Fake Out, gets some good Prankster moves. And then, yeah, going back to Lucario, gets the Justified, so it can do beat-up Justified. If you run, like, I think it gets Coaching. You can run a fast support set with, like, Coaching and then Bullet Punch to proc a policy on Mimikyu or something. Yeah, decent mon. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it can definitely, like, if you don't prepare for it, it can definitely catch you off guard. I think Aerodactyl is incredibly underrated. Flying Rock, I think, is fantastic offensive coverage. You can run a supportive Tailwind set. You can get Bulldoze for speed control on either way. It does damage, or it fulfills an incredible utility role. I think Aerodactyl is really underrated. Vaporeon is a really solid, like, bulky water. Does your typical bulky water stuff. I don't really have much to say about it. Drampa, a phenomenal, like, special Trick Room Dragon type. Gets good coverage. Gets Sap Sipper to kind of block the grass types that want to go into Vaporeon. And even Piloswine. But most of the time, you can also run Berserk, which is a really nice ability, especially if, like, you get hit as the Trick Room is getting set up. Suddenly, you're +1 and you're going first. You're definitely taking a KO. But also, having Cloud9 to deny weather control is also really nice. Moving on. This Rotom Mo, good. Like, pretty much most of the Rotoms are great. All the Rotoms except, like, Frost and Fan are really solid. And Rotom Mo is really pretty solid. Grass Electric is really fantastic. Typing, like, obviously, Levitate. All Rotoms having Levitate is nice to avoid the ground weakness. But you hit a lot of things for super effective. And you pretty much invalidate water-type matchups. Like, water-type matchups, besides, like, niche ones that are, like, some water poison matchups. Like Tentacruel. Tentacruel is the only bad water-type matchup that Rotom Mo has. Clear my throat. Rotom Mo gets good speed. Like, can run Scarf, can run Specs, can max, can not max. Gets Electro Web. Like, can do a lot of varied things. Wigglytuff does competitive things, I guess. That's kind of all it does. Like, ward off a niche Intimidator. I don't really know. Piloswine is super great. I think I'm a huge Piloswine fan. Like, being able to be super bulky with Eviolite, being able to ignore Intimidate, or to, like, just shrug off fire and ice hits with Thick Fat and Oblivious. Like, other way around, but yeah. Such a good low-value mon. It does Ice Ground, one of the best stab combinations in the game. You hit so much for super effective. And great in Trick Room, obviously. And then Chandelure. Chandelure is really solid, like, Ghost Fire, good offensive typing. Its base speed can, like, if you want to, like, run a bulky set and, like, try to operate in Trick Room, you can definitely do that against a faster team. You can also outspeed a slower team and just donk it. But Chandelure really solid. And this team's Trick Room is just so oppressive. Like, if you let Trick Room go up, like, you're gonna have a hard time. And you very rarely have the choice of letting Trick Room go up or not, because Instant Mimikyu is, save, like, Mold Breaker Excadrill, is like, Incineroar Mimikyu is getting Trick Room up regardless. It's so hard to deal with. And then pretty great low value, like, low tier Trick Room Sweepers in Drampa and Piloswine. And even Vaporeon to an extent. really solid. Foiled, playing amazing as always. They're so calculated in all of their prep and everything they do. Like, they won last season for a reason. They know this team. Like, they pilot this team super well and are able to take threats that, like, on paper don't seem that, like, fantastic, like Drampa, and really make them scary. Fold's a fantastic player, and it's been a pleasure, like, playing with them. It's a really solid team. I don't really know what else to say. And then lastly, our number 1 seed, Matthew Sandslash, coached by none other than Don Mateo. Matthew. Oh boy, where do I start with this team? I'll say it out the gate, this is the best team in the league, in my opinion. Like, it's so creative and makes so much good use of everything. I'll get into it. Obviously, Whimsicott, one of the best support mons in the game. Prankster Tailwind, Prankster Taunt, Helping Hand, Encore, Fake Tear. I don't know if it gets Fake Tears, but Prankster Charm, that's the one. It's so solid. It's really, like, the most oppressive support mon in the game. And I got swept by a weakness policy variant, which is rough. 2 games in a row. It was not fun. But, like, that just such a testament to Matt as a player, like, being able to whip out, like, such a weird strat and still being able to dominate. And it was, like, it wasn't a bad strat at all. It was a great strat. I just never expected it. Then Arcanine, Intimidate, but also goes well with Whimsicott's Beat Up. Arcanine, solid fire type, like, good speed, good damage, good, decent coverage. Can run, like, a kind of supporty set, but it's usually, like, gonna be a more offensive set. Even with Intimidate, it's gonna be more offensive. Arcanine, solid mon. Hydreigon, another mon that gets beat up, actually. But yeah, fantastic. Does so much damage on the special side. For a mon that does this much damage and is pretty fast, 14 points is really cheap. And fairly bulky, too. Like, if you're not hitting this thing super effective, it's really hard to break. Hitmonchan. The name is right there. I don't know why I brain farted. Hitmonchan is really fantastic. Inner Focus, Fake Out, so you always win the Fake Out war is really nice. Obviously, Mach Punch for policy on Hydreigon and some other things that I'll show up later is great. Some decent support moves. Coaching, really solid. Yeah, Hitmonchan definitely worth the 4 points. Like, it was. And speaking of very valuable 4-point mons, Arctovish. Yikes, this thing is insane. Like, when you get Weather up, and I'll go into his Weather mode later, but when you get that Slush Rush up, this thing is nuts. Like, Dracovish was very popular and well known for just being able to OHKO everything with Vicious Rend. Arctovish does the same thing for only 4 points, and can also work as in Trick Room if you, like, somehow end up in Trick Room, but as long as Hail's not up and you're running a slow mode, like, all of a sudden, wow. Also gets Aurora Veil, which is really great to just get up screens if you're not really trying to sweep with it. That's solid. Arctovish is such an incredible value pick. It's definitely going to go up in value next season. Rotom Wash, and a little redundant on the water types, but if Arctovish isn't solid in every matchup, if, like, the weather matchup is not great, then, like, Arctovish is not great either, which is why Rotom Wash is here. Probably, the best Rotom form. Having your only weakness be grass is fantastic. Or like ground types with Mold Breaker, but that's kind of niche. Its stabs are fantastic. Like, getting up Rain is kind of nice. Getting up Electrotron with max moves. Can run bulky, can run setup, can run attack, can run, like, a Scarf or Spec set, can run a Life Orb. It's pretty varied. It's a lot of mons, like a lot of popular mons for either good neutral damage or for super effective. Yeah, Rotom Wash for the solid. Doug Triolola. I was so mad when he picked this. I was like, oh yeah, this is going to be, like, my last round pick. And it's like, no one's going to pick up Doug Triolola. Because I'm running a Sand team in Sand Force. And then, like, 6th round, it's gone, or 7th round, it's gone. I'm like, what? I was so annoyed, but it's pretty solid in this team. It's a pretty low tier steel type, but it does its job as a steel type and a ground type. Deals out the damage really fast. Tangling Hair for speed control. Can self-set Sand Force with max Rockfall. Yeah. Abomasnow. Abomasnow. One of my favorite Pokemon, just like growing up. I've always loved Abomasnow. And it's really fantastic on Matt's team. Being able to click Ice Shard for weakness policies on Hydreigon is fantastic. Setting up Hail for Arctovish, really nice as well. Grass Ice has to be one of the worst defensive types in the game. However, it's a phenomenal offensive type. It's like if you let this thing click Blizzard, like yikes, you're taking some big damage. Alchemy, I'm not a huge Alchemy fan. I think it's G-Max, but I don't think he's ran an offensive set. I think Alchemy is really not great. It just sucks in face of any sort of redirection. Like, you can just give your opponent a boost. I'm not a huge fan of Alchemy. It still does work. It still can, like, if left unchecked, it can, like, set up a really scary Mon. And just make that Mon, like unwallable. Just, like, it can, like, decorate, can give any Mon an insane boost. Even something like Dugtrio Lola can, like, really benefit from decorate. But it's a really, like, kind of tricky nature. Doublade, definitely super bulky with Eviolite. Can run something. I don't think it gets beat up, unfortunately. But can set up a Swords Dance. Really can just wall a lot of stuff, especially the fighting types that are kind of scary. The fighting and steel types that are kind of scary against some of the other things on the team. Being able to wall those out is fantastic. Yeah, that's kind of all I have for Doublade. And then Terrakion to finish out the beat-up core. Having 2 justified users is broken. It's so tough already prepping for, like, 1 justified user. Like, has someone who uses beat-up justified. Like, it's really hard to, like, prep for 1. Like, you have to, like, have a good strategy. You have to have a very clear-cut, specific strategy to get rid of it. And having 2 really good modes with it is so scary. Like, Terrakion doesn't even need beat up to be good. Like, Terrakion, if you give it, like, a band or a scarf, can be really scary and just pick up KOs here and there. But yeah, like, if you look at, like, the synergy in this team, like I was talking about synergy earlier with, I think, Glenn's team, the synergy here is so fantastic. It's just, this is a masterclass draft team. This is, like, this is, like, the peak. This is an example of how, like, this is what draft is. You taking a bunch of, like, low-tier threats, high-tier threats, having perfect synergy. Like, I said I'm not a huge fan of the Alchemy, but it fits well enough into this team. Like, but Whimsicott, Arcanine, Terrakion, Hydreigon, Hitmonchan, Arctovish, Rotom Wash, Abomasnow. How do you prep for all of that? You don't. There's no way to prep for every mode. There's always gonna, and Matt is such a creative team builder. There's always gonna be something that blindsides you. It's so hard to prep for him. There's a reason he's number 1 seed in the league. And yeah, that's all I have to say, I think. Cool. Thanks for listening. Hope once the playoffs are over, I'll definitely do a playoffs video. Hopefully titled How I Won Playoffs, but we'll see. Yeah, cool. Thanks for listening. Bye.